This is grinding the ends of the end mills and also the counterbores. You grip the end mills in the chuck the way you normally do. In this case, so you're not using any cams and you're not using any oscillation. All you're doing in this is an indexing head. There's 12 equally numbered slots on the workhead. So initially you want to set it up in the number 1 slot. That'll give you your initial starting position for grinding. And then you set the end mill in, you chuck it back in as close as you can into the chuck. And if your setting blade is beyond that point, you can swing it out to catch the lip and then bring it back. If you're even beyond that point, you have to pretty much set it level by eye out on a step. As this setting blade is set on center line of the chuck, so that when you do that, you do have your end mills on center line, so they're set level, ready to grind. The angle that you set the workhead up depends on how much of a dish that you want to put on the end mill. If you want it perfectly flat, in the case you would on a counterbore also, do that. You would set it so that the pin is dropped in the center hole position, and that locks it straight in. And you would set up for a dish, you would set it up 1 or 2 degrees off center. So for 2 degrees dish, you want to set it up at 166 degrees on the right hand side of the scale. And then lock it in position in the front. Now to grind your primary and secondary on the end mill, that's done by dropping the workhead down below center. Now in your manual there's a chart that gives the actual angle generated by a given wheel diameter and a given height setting on the scale. So this, I have a 7-inch diameter dish wheel, and to give a 25-degree secondary relief on the end mill, I would drop that down to 38 on the scale. Now, I recommend using a dish wheel or even a cup wheel because this has a small point contact area, and that will allow you to make a nice cool grind because you're going across a wide face, and also that will allow you to gash the end mills using the same wheel and in the same setup. So I'll switch it on. Bring your wheel in till you touch, then bring it past the end mill, and then feed in about 5 thousandths at a time. Bring it across till you're almost over the next lip. Then when you reach that point, you zero your slip ring on the cross feed, bring it back, and index. Now if you have a 4-fluid end mill like I have here, you would index by 3s, since there's 12 equal positions. A 3-fluid you go by 4s, and in the 6, on the 2-fluid, they're 6 apart, the slots. Feed it back to 0. Go to 0. And that grinds the secondary. The primary, with this wheel diameter, if I want a 5-degree primary, I'd set it at 8 below center on the scale. And again, I just feed it to 0. Now to gash the end mill, what I would do then is leave it in the same indexing positions. In this case, I want to loosen the lever, swing the workhead back on a 4-flute. Now, if you had a 3-flute or 2-flute, you'd have to index back to get the gash, since the cutting edge is not in the same relationship as it is here. Now, typically you would set your gash at the same angle that you do your secondary. In some cases you want to have it even a little bit steeper. Gash one side, and then just keep indexing around. Each time you set your slip ring to 0. Now, to thin your wheel out for gashing, it's best to use a small dressing stick and just narrow the wheel down to a small point. Depending on the size of the end mill, really determines the size of the gash. And once you've done that, you can use that for doing the facing the end and also the gashing. If you have an end mill that's very badly damaged, it is best to cut or rough it out first before you try to grind this. And even then, you may have to do a rough primary grind to get the rough geometry there, and then go back and reset the tool and then go back and grind, because you do have a helix on the flute here. So as you grind down, it's going to start to change the timing. Other things to keep note of the end mills is when you're using a thin wheel, don't use too much side pressure on it. You can chip the wheel off, in some cases even break it. And other considerations are if you're using a center cutting end mill, that is, you have it gashed past center on 2 sides, you're going to have to do your gashing deeper on those 2 sides.